Hey guys, Ragnarok54 here, and welcome back to another RuneScape video. Today I want to give you guys a really quick crash course guide on melee minion tanking at Angel of Death. So this is not going to be a beginner guide, but it's also not going to be in-depth really at all. I just want to get people's feet on the ground in the instance, not dying and doing a decent amount of damage. So if you want a more in-depth video, I am planning to make one, but let me know if you're interested in this in the comments, and I will hopefully get around to it. Alright, so let's jump right into things. I'm going to be assuming you guys have a lot of things in this video. If you don't have any of them, you're just going to have to make do, maybe replace an ability with another one, or don't use a certain special attack or something. But I'm going to generally assume that you have like the greater abilities and maybe a ZGS and stuff like that. Here's my preset, so obviously you're not going to have most of this stuff, but generally there's a few important things you want to keep in mind. You want to use the best overload that you can. You want to use spiritual prayer potions instead of any other sort of prayer renewal potion because they'll restore your Ripper Demon special attack. You want to focus on bringing as little solid food and Ceradomin brews as possible, and instead you want to bring more Blue Blubbers and Guthix Rests. As you can see, I only have one of each of those bad ones, but as you're learning, you can change up this ratio a little bit. Just know you want to minimize that ratio. I'd also really recommend having Adrenaline Renewal Potions. They're not entirely necessary until you get down to maybe 3-minute kills or so. You can work with any other sort of Adrenaline Potion, but these are going to be really useful once you get down to that kill speed. Dominion Mines are required. Scythe is required. You don't need a ZGS, but it's borderline required. It's going to be really useful. A Flanking Switch is pretty cheap, under 50 mil, and it does a lot of damage. You'll also want a Power Burst of Acceleration. This will help you escape from a special attack of Nex later. A Mobile Switch is going to be really useful during the kill. Excalibur can help you heal. You can also use this Excalibur as your Mobile Switch. I have Rune Pouches in order to use Vengeance and Disruption Shield, but that's by no means necessary. If you're starting out, you can just use food instead of those. Onto the gear, I have Trim Masterwork, kind of a given. Don't use Cinderbanes here since she's not poisonable. I don't have any special attack in my Essence of Finality, but you can put your Dragon Battle Axe in there if you don't want to keep it in your preset like I do. You can use any cape. I'd recommend starting your preset with the Vigor equipped. I'd also recommend using Alloy Armor Spikes because they're really cheap and you don't really have anything else to go in the quiver spot, so it's just free damage. Lastly, there's the Ceradomin book. You can use a Grimoire or a Ceradomin book or an Armadillo book or anything you want. I'd recommend not using a Vampirism Scrimshaw, as tempting as it may be. You'll do a lot more damage if you use a Cera book, and you shouldn't be running out of food, and it's going to be really hard to wean yourself off of a Vamp Scrim if you start using one. Okay, so let's jump into the kill now. Again, this is going to be like a crash course guide on how to not die and do a decent amount of damage. I'm not going to go super in depth with like the exact rotation and everything. I really want to cover this quickly and just give people a nice overview of what they need to be doing to be a valuable member of the team. So you're going to start off at the Nex Bank, and I'd recommend having either a War's Retreat portal or a Max Guild portal to Nex. Obviously, I also recommend having the infinite charges for your Frozen Key unlock, but if you don't have that, that's fine. You might want to have a preset with Ancient Ceremonial if you don't have that, but it's not as big of a deal as it would be for regular Nex. When you get here and your team is about to start, make sure to get your Bonfire boost. You can use some Protean logs to get a extended Bonfire boost. This is also when you're going to want to summon a Ripper Demon and fill it with about 150 to 200 scrolls. If you want, I'd recommend using some incense sticks like Spirit Weed or Lantidime. You don't have to, but feel free. You can also use Spiritual Healing, which is a lunar spell that will extend the timer of your familiar if you want to get a little bit more value out of your Ripper Demon pouch, maybe if you're doing something after the hour with your Ripper Demon. And you should be ready to go. So load your preset, make sure you got Divine Charges and everything, Spellbook, Auto Retaliate, all that, and you should be ready to go. So starting kills is going to be a bit unique at AOD. You don't just go in and start it like whenever you want. You go in and everyone is going to try to follow a similar sort of strategy so that everyone is at 100% adrenaline, has their ultimates ready to go when the kill starts. So what this will look like is once you get into the kill and everyone's ready, someone's going to drop a combat dummy, which everyone will build adrenaline on, and assuming that everyone gets to around 100% at the same time, they will use Natural Instinct, build back up to 100, and then as a meleeer, you'll have your Dragon Battle Axe, so use your Dragon Battle Axe spec, and then build back up to 100 to be ready to Zerk at the start of the kill. It's also important during this time to lay down your mines in your respective quadrant. So if you are Umbra, that's the southeast, Glacies, it's the northeast, Krur, it's the northwest, and Fumus, that's the southwest. Place them anywhere along this line here and it should be fine. So, phase 1. The important thing here is to Zerk at the beginning of the kill. So as Nex hits the ground, thereabouts, you want to use your Zerk with your Ring of Vigor, and then barge in. Generally, you're going to want to bleed an ability. Depending on your kill speed, this should either be Flurry or Assault. You can play around with it and see which one you like better. Again, I'll probably make another video going a lot more in-depth with the actual rotation and giving all sorts of tips and tricks. But for now, I just want you to know that it's important to Zerk at the beginning of the kill and end the phase about when your Zerk is ending. That should be your goal. This is a great time to use your flankings, and if you're Krur or Fumus as a minion tank, I'd recommend standing on the north-south line in the middle so that you're directly to the side of Nex and you can use flanking. The last thing you need to worry about on phase 1 is what's called the Elements spec. Nex is going to jump up into the air and then face one of the 4 quadrants. If she's facing your quadrant, then that means you're about to take 3 big typeless hits, and if she's not facing your quadrant, that means that a Reaver is going to spawn and walk slowly toward Nex, and once it hits her, it will heal her for the amount of HP it has, and then damage everybody a little bit. This is why we place the mines, so that the Reavers have really low health, so that you can just completely ignore them. If she faces your quadrant, then you're going to want to use Disruption Shield, and depending on your phase timing, maybe use a Resonance as well. That will nullify 1 or 2 of the hits, and really you can pretty easily just eat a little bit of food for the other 1 or 2 hits. Especially if you're running Trim Masterwork, it's really not something to worry about. So as this phase ends at 2.1 million life points, you're going to want to use your ZGS spec if you have it. If you don't have it, then it's not the end of the world, but just know that you're probably not going to be able to go on any 7-man teams if you don't have a ZGS. If you do have a ZGS, then go ahead and go to what I'll call the ZGS spot. That's right here. It's kind of hard to describe what it is, but just look and you'll see where it is. Sit there, use your ZGS, and then use a defensive or 2 so that you have the barge buff. Make sure to spam click under you when you use the ZGS so that your character doesn't automatically attack Nex after using it, and that will make you have to wait even longer to barge. Barge in as soon as you have the buff, and then make sure to bleed Flurry once she becomes damageable again, which will be when the amalgamations all spawn. Now we're into P2. This is when you're going to want to use your Scythe. So after you've bled your Flurry, you can use another ability if you don't have 50% Adrenaline. And then you're going to want to walk back onto that ZGS spot with your Scythe and use Hurricane on Nex. The advantage of this is that it will damage both Nex and your Amalgamation, so you kind of get a 2-for-1 deal here. After you've done this, you want to get back on your Amalgamation and use all of your 188% basics, so that's Sever, Decimate, and Cleave, and a few other basics, and you should be good with your Amalgamation. Key takeaways here are to bleed the Flurry, use the Hurricane on Nex, and kill your Amalgamation. If you find you're having trouble killing your Amalgamation on time, maybe ask for some more help from your teammates, or if that doesn't work, then try using Hurricane from the same spot, but focusing it on the Amalgamation instead of on Nex. Next important thing is to aggro your minion when it spawns. This will mean standing just outside the octagon, right where I'm standing here, and when the minion spawns, it should get on you. Then take a step forward and surge. This will put you directly across the octagon at a similar square. If you've done this correctly, then your minion should run after you and place itself perfectly underneath Nex. And P3 is going to begin. Okay, so now that P3 has begun, you are on the other side from where you started. Your minion is underneath Nex. This is a great time to Zerk. If you're really just learning, then maybe don't Zerk here quite yet, but just know that in general, what you're going to want to do here is Zerk and then barge back in. You can look at the exact rotation that I've linked in the description, and again, I'll go into this a lot more in depth in a future video. But this is when you want to use your Limitless, since your Adrenaline Potion should be on cooldown from phase 1. And bleed Assault. Make sure to use your Scythe a little bit here. because that will damage all of the minions. So ideally you should get off a hurricane with your scythe as well as a couple of cleaves while you're in your Zerk. The most important part of this phase is to use anticipation after you do a couple abilities. This will make it so that your minion doesn't stun you and you won't lose out on a ton of damage. Another super important thing in this vein is to not use freedom under any circumstances if your minion stuns you. It's going to be really tempting. Say something goes wrong and the minions are alive, you forget to anticipate something like that and you get stunned by your minion. You're going to want a freedom, but trust me, do not freedom or you could kill your team. This is because of the special attacks that can happen during this phase. The most important one is the ice. You'll know when this happens because your whole screen will turn icy and you'll get stunned. All you need to do is use freedom, walk a little bit away from your team, and then once an icicle falls down on you, then drink your power burst of acceleration and just spam surge or bladed dive and you'll get out and you won't take any damage. You just go back to attacking as normal. The thing people mess up here a lot is drinking the power burst too early, so make sure you freedom first, then run away from the team, wait for the icicle to fall on you, then you drink the power burst. And don't be too upset if you mess this up a couple of times. It's going to be pretty hard, but after you do it a few times, you'll get it down. The other special attack to worry about on this phase is the smoke lines. You might get a message saying that Nex draws smoke toward you from the north or from the east. All you need to do is kind of step out of the way of the rest of the team so that when something comes from the north or from the east, it doesn't come into the team. If you want to get fancy about it, you can place the north smoke on the north-south line in the middle because nobody should be standing there. You can also place the east smoke just south of everyone. But again, I'm not trying to go super in-depth in this guide, just make sure that you don't smoke the entire team. Okay, so you just kind of keep attacking Nex for a while, use your thresholds or basics or whatever you want. Keep your health kind of high, and then once you hit 600,000 life points, phase 4 will begin. So this phase encompasses killing the pillars in the same order that the minions that represent them die. So I'd recommend using the Alt 1 plugin for this. If you don't have Alt 1, then get it, obviously. If you do have Alt 1, then just go to the utility folder at the top, and then AOD minions is the utility that's at the bottom of that folder. That will automatically keep track of what order the minions die for you. But generally you'll get a hang of this in your first couple of kills, so I'm not going to go into it too much here. Go to the pillar that died first and just kind of kill it. You shouldn't have to worry about too much here. Occasionally terrible things can happen in this phase, and unfortunately that's just kind of a part of the AOD life. So if you see terrible things happening, like shadows spawning underneath you or you get stunned or whatever, just make sure to pray mage, and you can use your freedom all you want, your anticipation, run around a little bit, wait till things calm down, and go back to attacking the pillar. If Nex is out of range enough, then you can use Soul Split here. It's a really good way to save on food. It's also important to use your mobile switch when you're going between the pillars to save time. The last thing to keep in mind of this phase is the insta-kill bombs. Occasionally you might get a message that says you have been chosen to receive the power of the elements or something, and a bar will start filling up above your head. You're going to want to run to the middle of the arena, make sure to have your Prey Mage on, and you'll wait till the bar fills up, and you should survive the insta-kill if you're in the middle. After you've survived this, make sure to go somewhere where Nex is not to drop off the bomb, which is what happens after the bar fills up a second time. Generally, my advice is to go to whichever pillar your team is currently attacking, unless it's the last pillar, because Nex is going to be there. These bombs won't do any damage to anyone as long as Nex isn't nearby. Alright, so now you're almost done with the kill. Once you get to the fourth and last pillar, I'd recommend using Berserk here and not ZGS because it's really just a lot better than using ZGS. Use your Zerk, make sure to stay on high HP, and go to the center if you get an insta-kill. And essentially that's the whole kill. Once you kill the last pillar, you get back on Nex, kill her, and hopefully you get a drop. So the last piece of this whole puzzle is after you've killed her and before you start the next kill. So you're going to want to Bladed Diver Surge to the middle, pick up your drop, and get back to the bank and load your preset as soon as you can. You don't want to be drinking any potions or eating any food when you're in the bank. You just want to load your preset. If you're low health, you can turn on the Fortitude Prayer to gain HP while you're in combat. And I'd highly recommend trying to end the kill with about 100% or so adrenaline. And if you don't quite have that, then use some basics in the bank so that you can enter the instance again and enter the next kill with near 100% adrenaline, and you'll start it all over. Alright, so that should be all for the melee minion tanking crash course guide. There's a ton that I didn't touch on here, and if you are interested, let me know and I'll make a super in-depth melee minion tanking guide that covers rotations, when exactly to switch weapons and abilities and all that. And it explains a little bit more of the why of all the mechanics, but really I just want to give people a less than 10-minute video that they can watch and know what they're doing. All right, well, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, bye.